The city of Chicago, having seen phenomenal growth in trade and commerce in the 19th century, is now full of energy, vigor, and monetary wealth. The vibrant city is now getting ready to host the grandest fair that the world had ever seen, named the World's Columbian Exposition, commemorating the 400th anniversary of Columbus's discovery of America. The exposition, spread over 1,037 acres of land on the shore of Lake Michigan, is scheduled to start from May 1st, 1893, and will continue for 6 months, concluding in October. New mansions have been erected to house innumerable exhibits. The fair's objective is to showcase the highest achievements in science, arts, and medicine. In addition, for the first time ever in history, it also plans to organize the world's Parliament of Religions. The Parliament's mission is to bring together in conference the leading representatives of all religions around the globe. News announcing this first of its kind Parliament has already been sent all over the world, inviting delegates from all religions. And sure enough, it did not fail to reach the quaintest village in a country where religion is the very soul of the nation. In the southernmost tip of India, where the land merges into Indian Ocean, a young monk, 29 years in age, is looking intensely towards a rock, at a distance rising up in the oceans. His eyes, bold and wide, were filled with an irresistible quest for an answer on the very purpose of his existence. Born on January 12, 1863, in Kolkata, his parents named him Narendranath. During his school and college years, he exhaustively studied science, arts, and philosophy of both the East and the West. While in college, he became the disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, whom the scholars and mystics in those days viewed as the living embodiment of religion and spirituality. Narendranath received the crest jewel of spiritual wisdom from his teacher Sri Ramakrishna, and yet his heart was yearning to unravel the goal of his life. After the passing away of Sri Ramakrishna, Narendranath took monastic vows along with his brother disciples, and in the quest of his mission, travelled all across India, from the Himalayas in the north, Gujarat in the west, and finally reached Cape Comorin, the southernmost tip of the nation. His heart, by then, was heavy and restless, having witnessed the miseries and poverty of the masses all over the country. And the only thought in his mind then was to find ways to remove their miseries. As he looked on with great yearning at the high waves of the ocean, a thought struck, and he immediately plunged into the sea. Swimming across, he reached the large rock offshore. Climbing to the top of the rock, he sat down, overlooking the ocean waters, and soon merged into deep meditation. In the depths of meditation, finally, he received the answer that he had so desperately been seeking. The clear-eyed visionary in this monk saw that religion was the backbone of the Indian nation. Falsehood, superstition, and hypocrisy, those were practiced in the name of religion, were indeed the cause of India's downfall. He realized India would rise again to heights of lost prosperity through a renewal and restoration of that highest spiritual consciousness which had made her at all times the cradle of nations and the cradle of faith. He himself had discovered that the knowledge of God's presence in man was the source of man's strength and wisdom. Sitting at that rock in Cape Comorin, he was determined to awaken this sleeping divinity. There flashed before his mind the new continent of America, a land of optimism, great wealth, and unstinted generosity. He saw America as a country of unlimited opportunities, where people's mind were free from the encumbrance of castes or classes. He would give the receptive Americans the ancient yet ever rejuvenating wisdom of India and bring back to his motherland, in exchange, the knowledge of science and technology. If he succeeded in his mission to America, he would not only enhance India's prestige in the West, but create a new confidence among his own fellow countrymen. News of the Parliament of Religions in Chicago had already reached India by then. Scholars, governors of various provinces, and even young college students who were amongst the Swami's friends, disciples, and admirers urged him to go to Chicago and represent the most ancient religion of human history, Hinduism. They collected funds to meet his travel and living expenses abroad. On the request of the Maharaja of Khetri, Swami took up the name Vivekananda, meaning one who delights in the knowledge of discrimination between the real and the unreal. Swami Vivekananda, reverentially addressed as Swamiji, now decided to start his voyage to America. A few days before departure, he told his brother disciples, "I travelled all over India, but alas, it was agony to me, my brothers, to see with my own eyes the terrible poverty of the masses, and I could not restrain my tears. It is now my firm conviction that to preach religion amongst them, without first trying to remove their poverty and suffering, is futile. It is for this reason, to find means for the salvation of the poor of India, that I am going to America." On May 31st, 1893, Swami Vivekananda sailed for America in the ship named Peninsula. Starting at the Bombay Harbour, Peninsula sailed towards the Pacific, and on the way, Swamiji visited Colombo in Sri Lanka, Singapore, Penang in Malaysia, Hong Kong, Tokyo, and other cities in the Japanese coastline. Finally, from Yokohama, he boarded the ship Empress of India, which cruised straight towards North America. Empress of India arrived in Vancouver, British Columbia, 7 p.m. July 25th. Alighting from the ship, Swamiji boarded a Canadian Pacific Railway train towards his final destination, the city of Chicago. Aboard the train, looking out from the train's observation car, with much excitement, he witnessed the captivating sights and sceneries of North Pacific, snow-capped mountains and lush green valleys. Catherine Sanborn, a renowned orator and writer, was also aboard the same car. A resident of the New England area, she lived in a farmhouse near Boston. In her own words, Kate Sanborn recollects this meeting in her memoirs.
I had met him in the observation car of the Canadian Pacific, where even the gigantically grand scenery of mountains, canyons, glaciers, and the Great Divide could not take my eyes entirely from the cosmopolitan travelers, all en route for Chicago. But most of all, I was impressed by the monk, a magnificent specimen of manhood, 6'2", as handsome as Salvini at his best, with a lordly, imposing stride, as if he ruled the universe, and soft, dark eyes that could flash fire if roused, or dance with merriment if the conversation amused him. He wore a bright yellow turban, many yards in length, a red ochre robe, the badge of his calling. This was tied with a pink sash, broad and heavily befringed. Snuff-brown trousers and russet shoes completed the outfit. He spoke better English than I did, was conversant with ancient and modern literature, would quote easily and naturally from Shakespeare or Longfellow or Tennyson, Darwin, Mueller, Tyndall, could repeat pages from our Bible, was familiar with and tolerant of all creeds. He was education, an illumination, a revelation.
Kate Sanborn was a famous socialite, and her hospitality was well known. Her keen observation immediately caught the distinctiveness of Swamiji's demeanor and conversance. She gave him an open invitation to visit her farmhouse near Boston. Swamiji honorably accepted Miss Sanborn's invitation. As the train drove into Chicago, he alighted all by himself on the platform of a city dazzling in its own glory of cultural and economic prosperity, and probably prepared enough to welcome the brilliance of this Hindu monk, only 30 years in age. In the sprawling fairgrounds on the bank of Lake Michigan, Swamiji marveled at what the Western world had achieved through hard work, friendly cooperation with one another, and the application of scientific knowledge. Not too many years ago, Chicago had consisted of only a few fishermen's huts, and now, at the magic touch of human ingenuity, it was turned into a fairyland. With much appreciation, Swamiji noticed the intense accumulation of wealth, power, and inventive genius in the nation. On Swamiji's part, his first feeling was one of unbounded admiration. Very soon, however, a shocking discovery unveiled. To attend the Parliament of Religions as a delegate, it was required to register in advance, and the date of registration was already over. Delegates were also required to provide appropriate credentials of religious authority. Swamiji had no such papers of credentials with him. As a newly arrived foreigner, he was unknown to Chicago or to America. So how to arrange for those credentials? To make matters worse, Swamiji also discovered that the Parliament of Religions would not convene until September, which meant a wait of more than a month. The money that his disciples and admirers had put together was already dwindling to pay for the daily expenses. It was doubtful if the money would last till September. How then would he continue to live in Chicago for all that time? Let's say somehow funds are arranged, but without appropriate papers of credentials, how could he even join the Parliament of Religions? So what would he do now? What Swamiji did at this point was unplanned and unexpected, and yet most charming, as in time it perfectly resolved all these concerns. He decided to accept the very first invitation he had received in America, the invitation from Miss Kate Sanborn, whom he met aboard the train from Vancouver. So he took the train and started towards the city of Boston. Boston, the gateway city in New England. And our story begins. Along the northeastern seaboard of the United States of America, 6 states, namely Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island together gets referred as New England. The states are relatively small in size. Due to their geographical proximity, they share similar climate and culture. New England is one of the earliest English settlements of North America. Characterized by 4 seasons, this region has played a leading role in the history of American freedom and overall development since 17th century. Over the years, it has emerged as a prominent center of art, culture, and education, and is often referred as Athens of America. Swamiji's arrival at Boston in 1893 was just a beginning of his sojourn. Over the following years, he returned to this area time and again and visited many places in Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Maine, and Connecticut. It was probably a hot and humid August midday when the train drove into Boston as Swami Vivekananda stepped into the city. Kate Sanborn, well known for her hospitality, extended a warm welcome to Swamiji at her farmhouse called the Breezy Meadows. From Boston, Swamiji took train to Metcalfe, about 25 miles from the city. Miss Sanborn later recalls,
I trembled at the effect he might produce on the crowd gathered for the mail, but he was received in breathless silence. He was such a surprise. His luggage was so considerable in amount that the train was 10 minutes late at the next stopping place.
Making Swamiji comfortable in her home, Kate Sanborn started introducing him to various people and places, and also to the manners and customs of this land. Soon, Swamiji became a news item for the Framingham Tribune which reported,
Miss Kate Sanborn, who has recently returned from the West, last week entertained the Indian Raja, Swami Vivekananda, behind a pair of horses furnished by the liveryman F.W. Phipps. Miss Sanborn and the Raja drove through the town on Friday en route for the Honeywells.
The Honeywell Estates today is a historic district between the Charles River and Lake Waban in Wellesley, Massachusetts. It is adorned by landscaped gardens, trees, shrubberies, and residences of the Honeywell's family. In a letter to a disciple in India, Swamiji described his stay at the farmhouse. Just now, I am living as the guest of an old lady in a village near Boston. I have an advantage of living with her in saving for some time my expenditure of £1 per day, and she has the advantage of inviting her friends over here and showing them a curio from India, and all this must be borne from this village. I am going to Boston tomorrow. I am to speak at a big ladies' club there, which is helping Ramabai. I must first go and buy some clothing in Boston. If I am to live longer here, my quaint dress will not do. While at Breezy Meadows, Swamiji visited the town of Sherborne, about 20 miles west of Boston. The most notable establishment in the town then was a reformatory for female offenders. Today, it is known as MCI Framingham, owned by the Massachusetts Department of Correction. The news of his visit to the reformatory reached as far as Phoenix, Arizona. Arizona Republican reported on August 29th.
Swami Vivekananda of India, a Brahmin monk who is on his way to the Parliament of Religions to be held at Chicago in September, was a guest today at the Reformatory Prison for Women. Early this evening, he addressed the inmates of the institution in the chapel upon the manners, customs, and mode of living in his country. The gentleman, who is of rare intellectual ability and learning, was much interested in the workings of the reformatory and expressed himself as highly pleased with what he saw.
A prolific speaker on the American lecture platform, Miss Sanborn was well known to the elite circles, and she did her best to keep her promise to introduce Swamiji to the well-known intellectuals and philosophers in and around Boston. One of them was her cousin, Franklin Sanborn. Mr. Sanborn was a noted journalist and social scientist living in Concord, Massachusetts. Interested in transcendentalism, he was a close friend of renowned Concord philosophers Emerson, Thoreau, and Bronson Alcott. Franklin was greatly impressed with his conversations with Swamiji and invited him to stay with him for a few days. He also invited Swamiji to speak at the annual Convention of American Social Science to be held in New York within a few weeks. So the time came to leave Breezy Meadows, where, through the caring support of Miss Sanborn, Swamiji got a new glimpse of America, meeting many noted personalities living around Boston. While taking leave from Breezy Meadows, Swamiji addressed Miss Sanborn as Mother. Today, visiting the site of this farmhouse, one finds the message of divine motherhood and peace declared in the sprawling meadows where stands a Catholic church, a serene pond, and a long, winding rosary walk in the honor of Lady Fatima, the form in which Mother Mary had blessed some innocent shepherds. The place today is consecrated to the motherhood in divinity. The church, run by the Xaverian missionary, hosts programs on peace and interfaith dialogue. Seeds of religious harmony brought by the Hindu monk has no doubt germinated here and manifested over time. Near Cape Ann in Gloucester, Annisquam is a charming seaside resort. In summer, this quaint village starts bustling with visitors from far and near cities. Some of these seasonal visitors have also made this village their temporary summer home. Dr. John Henry Wright, an acclaimed professor at the Harvard University, was one of them. In summer of 1893, while staying in Annisquam, Professor Wright came to know about Swami Vivekananda from Kate and Franklin Sanborn and was eager to meet him. He invited Swamiji to Annisquam to spend a few days at the resort. Swamiji arrived at Annisquam on August 25th and was lodged in Charlotte Lane's boarding house, still standing today with very little change. In the boarding house and surrounding cottages, many scholars and intellectuals were living then. News of a prolific Hindu monk's arrival soon spread. In this house, they gathered and with intent amazement listened for long hours about the history of religion and culture of India from Swamiji. Professor Wright was immediately impressed by his genius, and so was his wife. Mrs. Wright wrote in a letter,
He came Friday in a long saffron robe that caused universal amazement. He was a most gorgeous vision. He had a superb carriage of his head, was very handsome in the Oriental way, about 30 years old in time, ages in civilization. So astonishing a sight did Swamiji present in this quiet little New England village that speculation set in at once as to who this majestic and colorful figure might be. From where had he come? What was his nationality? In quoting from the Upanishads, his voice was most musical. He would quote a verse in Sanskrit with intonations and then translate it into beautiful English, of which he had a wonderful command. And in his mystical religion, he seemed perfectly and unquestionably happy.
At the heart of Annisquam, the village church stands tall, radiating elegance and splendor. Established in 1728, the church in those days was Universalist. Today, over a century later, she is non-denominational. In this church, Professor Wright organized a formal lecture by Swami Vivekananda on Sunday, August 27th. This was indeed a very special occasion, Swamiji's very first public discourse in America. As he spoke, the audience sat silent in amazement. One of them later remarked,
He had a charming voice. He began his lecture in Annisquam Village Church by saying that the Hindus were taught to have a great respect for other people's religions.
This event made news in Gloucester Daily Times.
First public discourse that he ever gave in English or in his native language. It marked the beginning of his unprecedented work in the West. It was in this quiet village, Annisquam, from where ships have had sailed to China and India before revolutionary times, that another revolution was so quietly begun, the changing of the thought current in regard to religion and spirituality.
Yes, indeed, Swamiji's arrival in Annisquam was historic, as it opened the doors for his meeting with whole of America and subsequently the whole world. Highly appreciative of Swamiji's genius, Professor Wright persuaded him to attend the Parliament of Religions at Chicago. Swamiji in those days was reluctant to return to Chicago because of his humble funds and want of proper credentials. He said, "To ask you, Swami, for credentials is like asking the sun to state its right to shine." At the entrance of Anasquam stands the house of MIT professor Alpheus Hayat. This is also a place where we find the footprints of Swamiji. Hayat's grandson later described of a Saturday evening when Swamiji was invited to their house. That evening took a special form, with much fun and frolic, an outdoor festivity in the company of their very special foreign guest. A year later, Swamiji stayed in this house for 3 weeks. In the courtyard of Hayat's house still stands a tree of rare artistic appearance. It makes one remember the Vedic age when, in the tranquil settings of such a shady tree, the Vedic teacher would teach his pupils, and the imagery of Swami Vivekananda, the great sage of modern times, flashes before us as we see this tree today. Professor Wright made all arrangements, both monetary and logistical, so that Swamiji can attend the Parliament of Religions at Chicago. He arranged the much needed credentials by introducing Swamiji as an exceptionally qualified delegate. Here is a man who is more learned than all our learned professors put together, with the professor's insistence and help, which today seems as though designed by the hands of Providence. Swami Vivekananda's appearance at the stage of the Parliament became a reality. Swamiji and Professor Wright became lifelong friends. Swamiji returned to Anasquam again next year, but right then it was time to leave for Salem. Kate Tannant Woods, a resident of Salem, was a lecturer, a prolific writer, and founder of the Thought and Work Club. The mission of the club was to help women become self-sufficient. A friend of Kate Sanborn, she met Swami Vivekananda in Breezy Meadows farmhouse and invited him to visit Salem as a guest speaker. His arrival was announced in the local newspaper. Swamiji arrived in Salem on August 28th. He stayed at the house of Mrs. Woods for 7 days, visited the nearby places, and gave public lectures. One evening, he also spoke to a group of children, a meeting specially arranged by Mrs. Woods at the backyard of her house. She wrote books for young children and wanted to give them a glimpse of greatness in action. On August 28th, he spoke in Wesley Church on manners and customs in India. In the packed audience, among others, were present the ministers and priests from the church. It was Swamiji's first interaction with the clergy in the West. Next day, report of his talk appeared in the local newspapers. The reporters were still learning to spell his name correctly.
This speaker explained his mission in his country to be to organize monks for industrial purposes, that they might give the people the benefit of this industrial education, and thus to elevate them and improve their condition.
On Sunday, September 3rd, Swamiji spoke at the East Church on Religion of India. In America, and particularly New England, recycling buildings is not uncommon. East Church, or Salem Village Church, was later converted into a museum. Salem Witch Museum. The Salem witch trials occurred in colonial Massachusetts between 1692 and 1693. More than 200 people were accused of practicing witchcraft, and 20 were executed. Eventually, the colony admitted the trials were a mistake and compensated the families of those convicted. This museum is today one of the greatest local attractions, and many visit this erstwhile church to venture into the witch world. For the admirers of Vivekananda, however, it is still a sacred place of pilgrimage. On September 4th, Swamiji left Salem for Saratoga Springs in New York, where he spoke at the annual convention of American Social Science organized by Frank Sanborn. From there, he went to Chicago to appear before the whole world at the stage of the Parliament of Religions. I am proud to belong to a religion which taught the world both tolerance and universal acceptance. We believe not only in universal toleration, but we accept all religions as true. I belong to a religion into whose sacred language, Sanskrit, the word exclusion is untranslatable. People thronged in huge numbers in the parliament to listen to his speeches, to listen to his unique message unheard of till then. And America accepted him as the orator by divine right. This was only the beginning, and from then, over a decade, his footprints spread to many corners of this country, where, through lectures and sermons, America and the whole world received the highest wisdom of universal acceptance, harmony, knowledge of ultimate truth, and bliss. After almost a year, Swamiji returned to New England. On April 5th, the Boston Evening Transcript announced his arrival as
Swami Vivekananda is coming to Boston in all the glory of his gorgeous orange turban and his advanced views on all topics, intellectual and moral.
From Boston this time, he went to Northampton. Northampton, known for the prestigious Smith College, is a scenic town nestled near the Berkshires in western Massachusetts. On Saturday evening, April 14th, Swamiji lectured in the Northampton City Hall. The building is still standing at the corner of Main Street and Crafts Avenue. Its lecture hall converted into various offices.
But to see and hear Swami Vivekananda is an opportunity which no intelligent, fair-minded American ought to miss if one cares to see a shining light of the very finest product of the mental, moral, and spiritual development of a race which reckons its age by the thousands, while we count ours by the hundreds, and is richly worth the study of every mind.
In Northampton, Swamiji lived at the Square Brown House, off-campus housing for the students. This house was later purchased by Smith College and now known as Hopkins House. Many dignitaries from the town were regular visitors to this house during his stay. students of Smith College also had the rare opportunity to interact with Swamiji in informal settings and listen to his wonderful utterances on Vedanta. His presence left a lasting impression in the mind of these students. Mattie Brown, then a young student at Smith College, later described,
I find in the universal gospel that Swamiji preached the satisfaction of my longing to believe that the divine is within us, that we are from the very first a part of God, and that this is true of every man. What more can one ask?
In the chapel of the college hall, during the evening Vesper service, Swamiji was invited to give a short talk. In the solemn moments of sunset, when the mind naturally draws inward, Swamiji's presence filled the chapel with awe and reverence. He rose to the podium and spoke on brotherhood of man and the necessity of unselfish love of God in order to know his fatherhood. Lynn is a small town about 10 miles north of Boston. On April 16th, from Northampton, Swamiji traveled to Lynn as the guest of Mr. and Mrs. W. Breed. Swamiji gave 2 lectures while at Lynn. The first one was held at the North Shore Club. The building is no longer there. We find an account of his lecture from the news reports.
At the meeting of the North Shore Club Tuesday afternoon, the audience was a large and brilliant one, representing the highest culture and including many distinguished guests. Swami Vivekananda from India, a learned monk who speaks English with ease and fluency, gave an intensely interesting description of the manners and customs in his country.
His second lecture was hosted at the Oxford Club Lecture Hall, still standing at 106 Broad Street at Lynn. Topic: Lecture on the Hindus. Boston Back Bay is today a major cultural and business center with many high-rise office towers, museums, and well-preserved Victorian-style mansions. In 1894, it was a newly built extension to Boston following a massive landfill project. This area was then an emerging center of culture and commerce. At that inflection moment of tremendous economic and cultural growth, the appearance of Swami Vivekananda in the city was announced by Boston's leading newspaper, the Boston Daily Globe, with grandeur tinged with some humor.
Without doubt, the most conspicuous personage during this week was the Hindu monk who rejoices in the nomenclature of Swami Vivekananda, the garb of brilliant orange and black. The Back Bay has been turned into a jungle, metaphorically, and Swami Vivekananda has prowled about therein in momentary danger of the snares of the social prowlers. This man is exceptionally handsome, and he combines, besides, cleverness with great charm and manners.
During this visit, it was his dear friend, Professor Wright, who hosted Swamiji at his house, still standing at Riedesel Avenue in Cambridge. During this visit, lasting about 10 days, he gave 7 lectures. At the Fay House in Radcliffe College, Swamiji spoke on May 8th. Mrs. Wright wrote in her journal about the lecture.
Vivekananda spoke before the Harvard Annex upon his religion. It was most poetic, full of reverence, and with deep feeling, which for the moment makes converts.
On May 16th, Swamiji gave lecture at the Sever Hall at the Harvard University in Cambridge. The building is still standing tall at the heart of Harvard campus, declaring its honor of having the footprints of Swami Vivekananda. Mrs. Charles Fairchild was a business executive and a patron of art and culture. At her home, Swamiji spoke on divinity of man. Lawrence is an industrial city about 25 miles north of Boston. Even today, it is mostly populated by immigrants. While lecturing in Boston and Cambridge, Swamiji took a short trip to Lawrence as the guest of Mr. and Mrs. George Henry Young. Mr. Young was the pastor of the Unitarian Church in Lawrence. Swamiji was in Lawrence for only one day, but his presence, no doubt, had an impact, as we find in this announcement of his lecture in the Lawrence Daily American. The library hall where Swamiji spoke in Lawrence was on the second floor of the Lawrence Public Library. Built in 1892, the building still stands at the northwest corner of Haverhill and Hampshire Streets. A few months later, Swamiji arrived again in New England and spent the summer with Professor Wright and other friends. During this visit, he went to Plymouth as a guest of Thomas Wentworth Higginson, who was a Unitarian minister, author, abolitionist, and also served as a colonel during the American Civil War. He was one of the speakers at the Chicago Parliament of Religions and an admirer of Swamiji. Plymouth, in Cape Cod of Massachusetts, is historic for being the site where the European immigrants known as the Pilgrims first landed in America. In Plymouth, Mr. Higginson was the president of a group called the Free Religious Association. He invited Swamiji to speak at a meeting of this association on sympathy of religions. Swamiji arrived in Plymouth on August 12th and spoke at the Davis Opera House in the middle of Plymouth's historic district. Today, the Opera House building can still be found, although houses some specialty stores. While staying in Annisquam during the summer of 1894, Swamiji visited Magnolia for a few days. Magnolia, only a few miles south of Annisquam, is also a seaside resort. From his letters, we come to know how he enjoyed staying here. I have been for 3 days at Magnolia. Magnolia is one of the most fashionable and beautiful seaside resorts of this part. The rocks there are very beautiful, and the forests run down to the very edge of the water. Magnolia is also a good bathing place, and I had 2 baths in the sea. Here, Swamiji lectured on life in India at the town's library hall. Melrose Journal carried this report on October 5th.
The very interesting lecture given by Mr. Swami Vivekananda of India was listened to by a large audience in Rogers Hall on Monday evening. Mr. Vivekananda is a monk who has taken the oath of poverty, believing the touch of money would defile him. He lives a most noble life, and his talk concerning his native land is very interesting.
In the quiet, elite neighborhood in Cambridge still stands a house, residence of a saintly person known as Sara Bull. Swamiji called her Dhira Mata. Widow of the Norwegian violinist Ole Bull, she was introduced to Vedanta philosophy few years before her meeting with Swamiji. Her residence at 168 Brattle Street in Cambridge was indeed Swamiji's home in Boston. Here he received warmth, affection, and everything he needed to carry out his mission and to rejuvenate in the midst of intense works and whirlwind lecture tours. Before his first arrival at her home, he wrote, "I will come to your place. That is exactly what I wanted, a quiet place to write." Sara vacated the entire upper story of her house for him. The parlor room was made of teak wood brought from India. This room was used for music and various classes by Swamiji on Upanishads, Gita, and other Vedanta texts. In this house, Sara Bull heard from Swamiji about the universal message of Sri Ramakrishna and Sri Sarada Devi and decided to dedicate rest of her life to Swamiji's mission. Swamiji considered her a saint. Accepting Swamiji as her son, she actively helped in all aspects of his mission, both in America and India. Before Swamiji's final departure from her house, in a letter of appreciation, she wrote,
You have blessed to higher uses this home of ours by your presence. You have given us the pearl of great price. Let it be of such use in service as I would gladly make this house whenever you are near us, and in the coming years, that it may serve you and your people, who are our people as well.
I am neither the body nor the changes of the body, nor am I senses, nor object of the senses. I am existence absolute, bliss absolute, knowledge absolute. I am that, I am that. I am neither death, nor fear of death, nor was I ever born, nor had I parents. I am existence absolute, knowledge absolute, bliss absolute. I am that, I am that. I am without form, without limit, beyond space, beyond time. I am everything. I am the basis of the universe. Everywhere am I. I am existence absolute, bliss absolute, knowledge absolute. I am that, I am that. Sitting under a pine tree in the woods of Eliot, Swami Vivekananda was uttering this gospel of truth to a group of eager listeners gathered around him, both young and old, learned and novice, who came to take part in the Green Acre Conference organized in July 1894. These words of Advaita Vedanta we find for the first time in Swamiji's discourses in the West. Swamiji wrote in a letter, I teach them Shivoham, Shivoham, and they repeat it, innocent and pure as they are, and brave beyond all bounds. And so I am happy and glorified. For this tiny New England town in Maine, this was also a time of great joy and glory. The state of Maine is both the northernmost and easternmost portion of New England. It is known for its scenery, its jagged, mostly rocky coastline, its low, rolling mountains, its heavily forested interior and picturesque waterways, as well as for its seafood cuisine, especially lobsters and clams. Eliot, a small town at the southernmost tip of Maine, only 60 miles from Boston, represents the natural beauty and serenity that is typical of such New England countryside, with rivers, meadows, and knolls. On one such knoll covered with lush greenery, high above the banks of Piscataqua River, spreads Green Acre, a summer resort surrounded by natural beauty. Sarah J. Farmer, one of the pioneers of the so-called New Thought movement in the East Coast, was the founder of this resort. A service-minded and a sincere seeker of truth, Sarah Farmer felt inspired to develop this resort as a spiritual retreat. So, on July of 1894, along with her friend, Mrs. Sarah Bull, she organized a conference called the Green Acre Conference with a vision to unite all members of world religions together in one place, similar to the Chicago Parliament of Religions held the year before. A very unique conference of various thoughts indeed was this Green Acre Conference that brought together a wide spectrum of participants encompassing faith healers, Christian scientists, religious delegates, philosophers, and so on. Sarah Farmer had met Swamiji when he was lecturing in New York and invited him to join this conference. Swamiji arrived at Green Acre on July 26th, 3 weeks after the conference had started. During the conference, luxurious Green Acre Inn accommodated the wealthier attendees, while the rest, including Swamiji, stayed at the Sunrise Camp, living in tents on the bank of the river. A large white tent with sitting capacity of up to 300 was used for the main conference meetings. Nearly a mile away from the inn stands a pine grove with many towering white pines, fondly called Lysic Cluster Pines by Mrs. Sarah Bull. These Lysic Cluster Pines were indeed the most important settings for the Green Acre Conference, for it was here that religious classes were held daily. A teacher, Jewish, Christian, Buddhist, or Hindu, would sit under his chosen pine, surrounded by his students. Under one of these towering pines, Swamiji held classes every afternoon, and it came to be referred as Prophet's Pine. It also became known as Swami's Pine. Swami Saradananda and Swami Abhedananda, who attended Green Acre Conference in subsequent years, are also believed to have given classes under this pine tree. It was here, in the open settings, that Swamiji could again spend a few days of simple and free living, what a sannyasin is used to in India. In his own words, The other night, the camp people went to sleep beneath a pine tree under which I sit every morning and talk to them. Of course, I went with them, and we had a nice night under the stars, sleeping on the lap of Mother Earth, and I enjoyed every bit of it. I cannot describe to you that night's glory after a year of brutal life that I have led, to sleep on the ground, to meditate under the tree in the forest. The cottage in the southwest corner of the Green Acre property is even today known as Ole Bull's cottage. Mrs. Bull probably lived here while in Green Acre, and the cottage is believed to bear the footprints of Swamiji. Appreciative of the ideals of the Green Acre Conference, namely the harmony of religions and the application of religious thoughts in practical lives, Swamiji encouraged Sarah Bull to continue her support of the Green Acre movement. In early 1900, Sarah Farmer accepted the Baha'i faith that espoused world peace, the equality of women, and the oneness of all religions. Since then, Green Acre began its evolution towards a Baha'i center. It increased and flourished as a conference facility, a resort, and also as a community center. And even today, it retains and offers to her visitors the peace and serenity of the days when it all began. After all, it was here under the towering white pines where Swamiji, the great saint of modern times, had meditated and spoke in his most ecstatic moods. During the 2 weeks of his stay in Green Acre in 1894, Swamiji not only showered the light of truth on the earnest listeners who were present, but also left behind him an atmosphere of intense spirituality, which, even today, after a century, attracts many seekers of truth to this place of pilgrimage. It was also probably here that he began to see in a new light his mission to America. After all, it was here that he began a new mode of teaching, imparting the core knowledge of Vedanta philosophy, proclaiming, "I am neither death nor fear of death, nor was I ever born, nor had I parents. I am existence absolute, knowledge absolute, bliss absolute. I am that, I am that." Nestled in the northeastern corner of America, blessed by nature's bounty and nicknamed as Switzerland of America, New Hampshire is one of the most scenic states in the country, covered by forests of pine, spruce, birch in the north, rugged granite mountains, crystal clear blue lakes, and oceanfront. This state has always attracted visitors year-round. When snow falls in winter, New Hampshire becomes a true winter wonderland. When summer arrives, boaters and swimmers head for the sparkling blue lakes. Hikers and campers seek out the beauty of the mountains. During autumn, the hills become a festival of fall foliage color. Throughout the year, the state offers visitors an ambience of rest, relaxation, and adventure. New Hampshire indeed offered the same to Swami Vivekananda when he visited here on June 1895. Swamiji's friend Francis Leggett, a businessman based in New York, owned a lakefront cottage in New Hampshire in an exclusive neighborhood called Camp Percy. In June, Swamiji had just finished an intense session of lectures and classes in New York when Mr. Leggett invited him to visit Camp Percy. It was just about time for a restful getaway. Other than Mr. Leggett and Swamiji, the party included the McLeod sisters, Betty and Josephine, and their cousin, Georgia Waithman Spence. In the natural setting of brooks, woods of white birch and dark pine, as one progresses towards Camp Percy, a waterfall splashing white foam all over is there, as if to welcome the visitors. Probably this Leggett party was no exception of this foamy greeting. A few more steps further up through the woods, one gets the glimpse of Lake Christine, a pristine, crystal clear blue water lake, sparkling at the touch of sunshine, surrounded by the white mountain range and thick forests of pine, birch, and spruce in the foothills. The water of the lake looks dark green from a distance. The lake is 1.5 miles long and probably 3/4 of a mile wide at the widest point. The logwood cottages in Camp Percy stretch over a lush green flatland along the edge of this lake. Mr. Francis Leggett's cottage was called White Birch Lodge. The Leggett party arrived at 1 p.m. on June 6th. They recorded the event in the lodge's logbook and signed their names. Swamiji signed as Swami Vivekananda, India, Heathen Hindu, a signature of his usual sense of humor. The day after his arrival, Swamiji wrote to Mrs. Bull, "I am here at last with Mr. Leggett. This is one of the most beautiful spots I have ever seen. Imagine a lake surrounded with hills, covered with huge forest, and nobody but ourselves. So lovely, so quiet, so restful. And you may imagine how glad I am to be here after the bustle of the cities. It gives me a new lease of life to be here. I go into the forest alone and read my Gita, and I'm quite happy. Quite happy indeed in the beautiful surroundings of a state whose motto is live free or die." Swamiji spent his days in great freedom. Mr. Leggett's daughter, Frances, later wrote,
Swami was happy there. To be in the company of these dear new brothers and sisters, to laugh with them and eat with them, to talk and walk with them, and to be much alone. This was contentment. He roamed in the woods and collected birch bark to make into parchment, and chanted to the birds, or meditated beneath some friendly tree.
"The lake waters are perfect for rowing. In Swamiji's words, we had a good deal of rowing, and I learnt a point or two in rowing." A neighbor later narrated an incident when one day Swamiji, while rowing, missed a stroke and almost capsized the boat, falling backwards, hitting his head on the aid. and burst out laughing at this folly. Probably he learned with experience how pricey missing a stroke can end up. He wrote, "We had such fine birch trees. I got up an idea of making books out of the bark, as used to be done in ancient times in our country. Often Swamiji would walk towards the pine grove adjacent to the camp with a Gita in his hand." Joe McLeod later narrated an occasion when one morning he was found sitting motionless under the pine, the Gita fallen from his hand, and the front of his robe was wet with tears. This is believed to be one of his few recorded experiences of Nirvikalpa Samadhi while in America. Today, the White Birch Lodge is still a property owned by the Leggett progeny. The camp is almost the same, except few additions of bedrooms, kitchen and bath. A studio house for additional members was added later. The nearest town to Camp Percy is Stark, a pretty hamlet in the foothills of the White Mountains, with brooks and streams flowing by the fertile orchards. White Birch Lodge and its surroundings bear the same signature even today. Surrounded by white birch trees in the yard and standing quietly by the shore of Lake Christine, vividly bears the footprints of that great sage, the Hindu monk, whose mind merged in the infinite realm of Absolute while sitting beneath one of the pine trees, with the fresh, crisp breeze from the lake brushing along, experiencing his holiness. From Camp Percy, Swamiji travelled to the Thousand Island Park, where he gave the inspired talks. He wrote to Betty Sturgis, "I will always look back upon the delightful time we had at Percy, and always thank Mr. Leggett for that treat. When you meet him next, kindly give him my eternal love and gratitude. The world is always bettered by the love and likes of him." Hartford, the historic capital city of Connecticut, is about 100 miles south of Boston and about the same distance north of New York City. Located by the Connecticut River, the city evolved from an early agricultural economy into an important trading center. Home of Mark Twain, Hartford is also known as a center of culture and politics. It was March of 1895. Swamiji was then totally immersed in teaching classes and giving parlor talks in New York City. Charles Brodie Patterson, an early leader of New Thought movement, had the chance to listen to Swamiji's talks there and invited him to come and speak at Hartford. On March 8th evening, Swamiji's train arrived at the Union Station in downtown Hartford. A short distance from the station on Pratt Street used to stand the Unity Hall, which was a part of the Hartford Unitarian Church. Swamiji's arrival and his lecture were well advertised in Hartford Post with few tolerable errors in the details.
Swami Vivekananda of Bombay, India, who will lecture at Unity Hall tonight, is a giant among the religious exponents of Buddhism. His words at the Parliament of Religions at the World's Fair held his hearers spellbound, and in his lectures in the large cities, he has won great renown for his eloquence, his keen logic and philosophy, and his wonderful magnetism.
At the center stage of the Unity Hall, before a large audience, Swamiji spoke of God, soul, and religion. Through the vistas of the past, the voice of the centuries is coming down to us. The voice of the sages of the Himalayas and the recluses of the forest. The voice that came to the Semitic races. The voice that spoke through Buddha and other spiritual giants. The voice that comes from those who live in the light that accompanied man in the beginning of the earth. The light that shines wherever man goes and lives with him forever is coming to us even now. We must never forget that. The end of all religions is the realizing of God in the soul. That is the one universal religion. If there is one universal truth in all religions, I place it here in realizing God. Ideals and methods may differ, but that is the central point. Almost a year later, in January 31st, 1896, Swamiji visited Hartford for the second time and delivered a lecture titled The Ideal of Universal Religion at the Unity Hall. Swamiji's stay at Hartford on both occasions was very brief. After each evening lecture, he left for New York City by train the very next morning. Unity Hall, where he spoke, no longer exists. It was demolished in 1924. Union Station, where he arrived, is still standing there, bearing his footprints. During spring, March 1896, Swamiji returned to Boston, accompanied by Mr. J. Goodwin. At the Procopeia Club, along with other distinguished guests, he was given a warm reception. In this place, Swamiji gave 3 lectures on the science of work, devotion, realization, or the ultimate of religion, which included readings from the Upanishads. To accommodate the swelling crowd who came to hear his lectures at the club, the organizers had to rent Allen Gymnasium. The gymnasium, with a seating capacity of 400, ran out of space during his lecture. On March 25th, he spoke at Dane Hall in Harvard University to the professors and graduate students of Department of Philosophy on the Vedanta philosophy. He was offered the chair of Eastern philosophy at Harvard after this lecture, an offer that Swamiji refused. 95 Irving Street in Cambridge is the residence of Dr. William James and still bears his sign. Dr. James, an exponent in both psychology and philosophy, was the first educator to offer a psychology course in the United States. He used to teach at Harvard and greatly admired Swamiji's lectures. On Dr. James' earnest invitation, Swamiji visited his residence one morning. Swamiji left Boston for Chicago on March 30th, 1896, never to return to the city which loved and admired him. The Boston area was truly the intellectual capital of America then. People there thronged to listen to his ideas. Some maybe out of mere intellectual curiosity, but others sincerely desired to understand and absorb his unique spiritual message, unknown to the West till then. On that last day of lectures, titled The Spirit and Influence of Vedanta in Boston, he first thanked the Americans and summed up his experience in their country by saying, "In this land of America, no question is asked about a man's peculiarities. If a man is a man, that is enough, and they take him into their hearts. And that is one thing I have never seen in any other country in the world." During his initial days in America as an unknown foreigner, New England had embraced Swamiji with a warm welcome. His genius was greatly appreciated here, which in turn led the way to his introduction to the world. After his overwhelming acceptance at the world stage, New England continues to admire him and had been instrumental in spreading his ideas over the years. In 1898, after returning to India, Swamiji established Belur Mutt, the headquarters of the Ramakrishna Order, a monastic organization with more than 175 branches all over the world. In the early part of the 20th century, the Vedanta societies in Boston and Providence came in existence as official branches of the Ramakrishna Order. Since then, these two centers have been serving as fountainheads in spreading all over the New England region the message of Vedanta as taught by Swami Vivekananda. These centers have been inspiring many generations of sincere seekers with the message of harmony and universal acceptance, divinity of the soul, and Vedanta's application to daily lives in realizing this divinity. On his 150th birth anniversary, as we reflect on the great life of Swami Vivekananda, it is not too hard to find his living presence through the ever-growing manifestation of his thoughts and ideas in this land of New England, which is replete with his footprints even to this day.